It's live. Let me keep doing stuff.
Are we ready to take flight? I'm gonna make a bunch of hilarious jokes like that while you set up the chat. Let's take flight. We can fly off to Neverland.
Etc.
What are
Etc.
some other good? Oh, the way. What is it like? Away we go.
Oh yeah. That's
Hi, Gigi. Woo! All right. Hi there, Tackler. Welcome to Disney Deep Dive, where each week we dive into the history, story, and details of the Disney parks. I'm Leah.
And I'm Stefan.
Yes, and we never quite grew up. We love Disney, but we're going to be talking all about Peter Pan's flight tonight. And if you are live, let us know where you are watching from. Say hey and interact with us in the comments in the live chat. And if you are watching the replay, you can comment along with us as well. And even though we are not watching live, we always respond to those comments, and it's a lot of fun. If you like this video, share it out. We really want to reach more Disney fans. So if you know people who like Disney and like the history and all that kind of stuff, let us know. One of our friends listens to us podcast style, which I think is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
So even maybe just want to listen to us in your car, we would truly appreciate it. So share it out. We work really hard on these episodes. Stefan's been working very hard, and we are going to be using our phones tonight because we do not have printer ink right now.
Yes.
That's pretty much, that's why.
I don't know if they even make the ink for our printer anymore. Kind of a problem. We'll kind of figure it out. Hopefully they do, because I don't want to buy a new printer. Those are expensive.
Oh, well, I got another one right down there we could use too.
Yeah, but this one, the one I have, had like a scanner on it and
Yeah,
a fax machine, but we don't have a phone line.
we have
for
many
it,
printers
so.
because we have like photo printers. We have printers he uses for work. We've got lots of printers, but you're not here for printers. You're here for Disney Deep Dive. We're going to get into that. Also, my super adorable mom also commented. It's weird. It says there's nobody watching, but then there's two of you guys commenting at least. So hopefully more join in. If you do check in with us, we would love that. Okay, you go ahead. Well, we always start with our own personal story.
Yeah, so we're talking about Peter Pan's flight. I don't think I actually went on it until we went on our Disney trip back in, when was that?
2015?
2015, yeah.
2016, yeah.
That was the first time I'd ever been on it. And it was cool. It was fun. I wasn't blown away by it because, there's a lot of years of separation between my experience in technology and what I expected, but it was still cool. It was nice. It looked fun, and there was no line, which apparently is not normal for that ride.
Didn't we fast pass it?
No, we got there super early.
Oh, you know what? We were there before rope drop. We had an early reservation. You're right. I thought for some reason we fast passed it.
Because we did that, and it's Small World, like with no line, so that was actually really cool. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It looked nice. Yeah, I don't have any like rave reviews about it, but it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that it is, I consider it a must do. I wouldn't wait for hours for it, but if you have young kids, or if you're just a kid at heart and you grew up with that movie or those stories and watched the movie, I think that it's one that you should do. It's just that quintessential Disney Fantasyland feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great ride. It's nothing crazy or extravagant or like you said with like technological advances, but it's a classic and I think it's really great. Which one of these are we on for Google Doc?
That one.
Okay. You kick. Oh, I see it. All right. You kick things off. There we go.
There you go.
And I got it under control. And I'm going to share this out to Facebook and all the other places.
So, Peter Pan's Flight is a rail-suspended dark ride and is one of the few remaining attractions that was operational on Disneyland's opening day in 1955, which I think lands it in the realm of, things to be talking about, because it's not a lot of stuff remains. I mean, and even this doesn't remain completely in its original form. But you have this Pirates of the Caribbean, It's a Small World,
All those things that you consider as the classics, like
Yeah.
all the things that all the sitcoms in the '90s they went to. It's like
Yeah,
it's the
all
must
the things
do's.
that have been there from the beginning, and this is still there, which I think speaks volumes. So in the beginning, Walt Disney first saw, and I'm talking about like in the very very beginning here, first saw the story of Peter Pan acted out on stage in 1913, which
Crazy.
I think is fun to put in perspective because not a lot of people realize like the timeline from like Walt Disney as a child to an adult, and like I mean obviously we talk about a lot of when he passed because a lot of it happens at the the crux of a lot of rides,
Mm-hmm.
but he was he old, I mean, not that old, but old enough at the time when he passed that he was alive during a very early time in American history. So in 1913, he first saw Peter Pan. From that moment, his love for Peter Pan started, and in the 1930s, he started working on producing an animated film for the story, of course. And that finally came to fruition in 1953 when the movie was released in theaters officially. So from that time, I mean, 23 years, he had been thinking about it and wanting to develop it. And, a lot of stuff happened in that time. We're not going to get into it, but it took that amount of time to finally make it happen. And it did, and it was a giant hit. When Peter Pan first came out, like it was a huge hit, like basically a runaway success, as were a lot of the films at that time, starting with Snow White. So obviously, when Walt imagined Fantasyland for Disney World, he knew that Peter Pan had to have a home there. Like that's where else are you gonna put him? Yeah, he has to be there. So the original concept of Peter Pan's flight was that you would fly around scenes from the movie as if you were Peter Pan flying around with the help of pixie dust,
Mm-hmm.
which is still the theme today. Really, you fly around in a pirate ship that is assisted with the help of pixie dust, and you get to see things from above.
Yeah. When you think about what, like, when you see that movie, whether you're a big fan of Peter Pan or not, like, that's the part of the movie that's so special. Like, getting
Hmm.
to fly and getting to do that, that's the magical part. So it makes sense to have that be the ride.
Yeah. This concept, though, created a few issues. Um, Other dark rides being built at the time, like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Pinocchio, Snow White, and there was it Cinderella? No, Snow White. Okay, I'm drawing a blank right now, but all the other dark rides that were being built at the time were primarily 2D plywood constructions where images were literally painted onto like wooden shapes. So a lot of the dark rides at the time were you were in a car that was on a track on the ground, and you were going along a rail system where they could have like kind of 2D images. So a board with stuff painted on it would come at you and then go away, and then you would turn a corner and it would be gone. Um, Really simple stuff, which worked in their favor because at the time they were under a major time crunch. They really had to get stuff built in a hurry,
Yeah.
and this helped with that. So that they ran with it and they were like, okay, yeah, this is a good system. With this ride though, the
Not
idea was
possible.
you're flying
Flying.
above.
Yeah.
You can't have 2D like flat images when you're flying above, so everything has to be 3D to pull off the actual effect.
Yeah, and this is also keeping in mind too that this is Disneyland slated to open July of 55. So drawings of the rides and the routes weren't even created until May of 54. So that may sound like a lot of time, but that's not very much time, especially if you watch some of these other videos. It takes a long time to come up with these rides, especially ones where they're having to innovate and come up with new concepts and how they're going to make them work.
Yeah, if you listen to some of our more like involved episodes, like you're talking years of
Mm-hmm.
development and coming up with like new systems and things.
And halts a lot of times they have to pause either for budget
Yeah,
or for going to things or
lots of reasons. In this
yeah.
situation, it was the park was going to be opening and they had to get it done. They had basically a year and a couple of months to get it going. So Herb Ryman was the man responsible for like coming up with the like route and a lot of the early like designs of like, okay, maybe this will look like this will look like this. Just coming up with early concepts, but that's just concept work. That's just pictures on paper. That's not actually building anything. So Fortunately, Ken Anderson and Claude Coates were up to the task of building the actual ride itself.
Who we've mentioned many, many times. Again, shameless plug, but you can go and watch. This is our 29th episode we've counted. So yeah, that's kind of exciting. We're coming up on 30. I am going to hop into the live chat for a second. Mike says, hi, new subscriber, enjoying your channel. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. If there's anything you'd like to see us talk about, any rides or attractions, we do this show every week. So let us know. We'd be happy to do that.
So when it comes to like the building of the ride, usually there's like some like, oh, they did this and it was so innovative and yada yada yada. With this situation, there really are no innovations or tricks. They just work themselves to death in order to put together the ride. Fortunately, though, both Ken and Claude had worked on the Peter Pan movie previously in various positions, so they knew that, or they had a very clear idea of what the ride needed to include, how it should look, the feelings it should like portray, because they'd worked on the movies. They knew the vibe they were trying to give out.
Yeah, and I like this. It's according to Ken Anderson, in an interview he did in '92. This is a quote, the work was both frantic and creatively spontaneous. There wasn't time for a lot of preliminary planning. We just went in there and did them. And that rings true to several stories that we've heard from when they go in with these rides. They don't have a lot of time, so they just have to start doing things.
Yeah, especially a lot of these early rides. And these ones I think are the most fun to cover. I'm almost afraid we've covered all the fun ones. But
You mean drawing a line in the sand and just go dig it?
Yeah. Because they're on a timeline. There's that pressure is there, and I for one believe that having that last minute pressure like produces the best work you can possibly produce.
It's the whole idea of if you have 3 weeks to do a project, it takes you 3 weeks. If you have 3 hours, you do it in 3 hours.
Yeah. Or if you're like me and you procrastinate really badly, you have 4 weeks to do a paper and you do it the night before or the weekend before and you produce
He's not asleep yet. We don't want her to hear
the most
this.
amazing paper on Rembrandt you've ever done, ever. And it's like 12 to 13 pages, cited sources, pictures, etc.
Don't try this at home, kids. Okay.
I'm not saying I did that exact thing, but I did.
Here we go.
But it's the idea that constraints breed creativity. So like when you give someone the like open freedom to do whatever they want, they produce nothing because they're like, I don't know what to do. But when you're like, here are the rules. It has to be this big. You have to do this. You have this. You lay out this system of rules where it's like it has to fit in this little square. Now do what you want to do, and you get incredibly creative because you're like, the rules are boring. I'm going to do everything I can to make this as fun as possible. And I love
Said
that.
like a true artist. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love having constraints and rules and things to follow. Like it brings out the creativity. So like we said, they were only 4 months away from Disneyland's grand opening.
Yeah.
But by the time they got building,
because they had already had a lot of models and concepts before the actual building.
Yeah, they
started.
knew it was going to be there. They came up with ideas, and they're like, okay, well, we got 4 months. Get on it.
Which is no time at all for I mean, think if you've ever built
time.
a house or like know someone who's built a house and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be done in May. And you're like, all right, well, we'll see you at Thanksgiving, maybe, you know?
For a ride.
A ride at Disney. Yeah.
So for the overhead rail system, they sourced a prefabricated system from the Cleveland Tram Rail Company, who've been producing overhead rail systems for years.
Yep.
It was originally designed primarily for factories and like industrial type scenarios. Where they would move, it was meant to move materials from like above the floor from one area to another. So think of like a little grabby arm where it's like
in a factory.
Yeah, to move it around. So they were the ones producing these. So naturally it was loud and full of problems because they weren't concerned about a lot of the things that a theme park would be concerned about, like rider safety, lots of noise intruding on the ride because
they were swinging like this.
Yeah, they were created to be used in an industrial setting where people weren't involved. I mean, they really couldn't have gone any further from what they needed. But they needed something prefab because obviously they were under time constraint. So yeah, one of the major issues was that people in the ride, like rounding a certain area, like I think it was in the bedroom, you could start rocking it like back and forth.
And people will, if they can, they will.
Yeah, yeah, which was a popular thing with like kids and stuff because those darn children.
Think about when you're in a, you go on a Ferris wheel or something, and there's always somebody rocking.
Oh yeah, going in the Ferris wheel. Mind you, I tell our children, no one move. We're not rocking back and forth.
The kids
grab onto the rail and just go up and down.
It's so funny because I have our daughter trained to go with him. I'm like, oh yeah, go with dad. I love rides. I love roller coasters. I love all that. You get me on the top of the Ferris wheel, I'm like, nobody move. Don't move.
It's terrifying.
I got stuck at the top of one once with my dad.
It's you're on a giant machine that takes you like 100 some odd feet in the air, and it was constructed in a day.
I was gonna say
it's not trustworthy.
I was gonna say I don't mind the one at Cedar Point, which is a really big one.
Yeah,
and then
because it's there all the time.
Right, and I did the London Eye, but that's nothing like a regular Ferris wheel.
No, but it's like they roll into town. Dip, 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 dip. Let's put this thing up, dude. All right, go ahead and go around. Let's shove people way up high into the sky. No, nothing wrong with this. Totally makes sense.
We have a comment, and it was, don't you dare rock that car. I'm with you, Stefan. Don't you dare rock that car. It will end our friendship. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yes. If you are watching, let us know where you are watching from, and let us know if you have been on Peter Pan's flight.
So, yeah, the ships could be swung, and it's not fun. And don't do it because it would shut down the ride. There were all sorts of issues. One interesting fact about the boats, though, like the boats that you ride in, because if you're not familiar with the ride, when you get in it, the vehicle that you're riding in is Captain Hook's boat, like the one that flies into the sky at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're in that ship. But one interesting thing about it is that the sails in both the front and the back of you are designed to block out the rails so that you can't see the overhead rails because they're in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things also in the ride specifically positioned to block the view of the rails to add to the magic that you're floating in the sky.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool because, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, it's unavoidable. There's going to be a rail, but then they add that little bit of magic into it where it's like, okay, we'll block that so you can't see it so that you sort of still believe that you're flying.
Yeah, and they also used a lot of black lights as well. So that was the thing that they would do where they would, things would be painted black, and they still do that so that you can't
they still use it a little bit, but originally then it was one thing where that was like a big technique where things they wanted you to see, and this goes back to the whole narrative like of the clamshell, like
hiding the stuff so that your peripheral,
thing, because they wanted it to be a movie as you're riding through. They want to, show you what they want to show you and only that. So this blacklight technique was they would paint all of the things they wanted you to see in black, like ultraviolet sensitive ink, and then they would black out everything else that they don't want you to see.
Yeah.
So then when the ultraviolet light was projected, you would only see what they want you to see, and it was heavily utilized in this ride, which works really well because everything above you is blacked out, so like you're not going to be looking up there, and the whole ride and all the characters and everything are all lit up and glowing, so you're going to be looking at them. So yeah, it's really smart. It's a good way. It's a really low tech way to produce the effect that they wanted at that time.
Yeah, especially again, this is 1955, so. Despite the overwhelming odds and issues, Peter Pan's flight, I knew I was going to say that, Peter Pan's flight was ready for opening. Excuse me. Ooh, ready for opening. Take it away because I take a sip of water.
It opened and started taking guests skyward July 17th, 1955 when Disneyland opened. So they had it ready in time, which was no small feat. They had a lot of work to do, and they managed to pull it all off. So, I mean, a lot of these original rides, especially, were just giant feats of Imagineering because they had so much to do. They had and they didn't skimp on the ideas. You know, it wasn't like they were like, okay, well, yeah, let's have a Peter Pan ride. Well, this is going to take a lot of time. We can't pull this off. Just, you know, make it a ride like everything else, and we'll figure it out later. You know, they still went for the big idea, the thing that would present to people what they wanted to show. And they pulled it off in probably the best way possible. Um, and that's something that has, I think, lasted throughout Disney rides is that, you know, and obviously the budget's much bigger, the timeline is much longer, and the things they're able to do are
Right.
way more innovative, and they take full advantage of that and produce.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it's
why.
less scrappy. It's less like, oh, let's toss this together. And not that they weren't
Mhm.
trying to do their best and delivering amazing results, but now they have the time, the budgets, the teams to really dedicate. Okay, they don't have to pull you around. They can focus on things and plan it out
Yeah, and
in
there is something to
advance.
be said about that, like scrappiness in those original rides, and how you can kind of see, like things like in Pirates of the Caribbean, how like the fire was like a fan on a light and like some like waving paper and
Hmm.
things, and how they pulled the effect off so perfectly. You know, things like that. You hear that and you see it, and you're like, oh, it's amazing. It has its own magic to it, but that attitude has still maintained throughout the years to where we are now with like what's
Pandora, like
Pandora? What's the new Star Wars ride?
Smuggler's Run.
Nope, not Smuggler's Run. Rise of the Resistance. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Rise of the Resistance with that one, like where it's just it's epicness on an incredible scale, and it's the attention to detail is there. The scrappiness isn't there because it's like, well, they had a good jillion dollars and all the time in the world to build it, but it still looks amazing, and you don't get that without this. So it's you know one leads to the other, and it's really cool to see that where they started and where they are now.
Yeah.
So with updates and refurbishments, which is the majority of what we're talking about here, because
Yeah.
the initial ride doesn't have a whole lot of info on it, like little bits and details that I thought were fun, but ultimately were boring.
Hmm.
Not anything I want to talk about.
What I thought was interesting with this is the first update comes only 5 years after the opening, and it's the gamut of these rides. Some rides don't have refurbishments for 40 years. So this
Hmm.
one had one pretty early when Imagineers, headed by Gracie, they worked the track system for the ride. So they wanted to eliminate a lot of that noise that was happening, maintenance issues, and then no more swinging of the boat. So
Yeah, the
you can't do
ability to
that
swing.
anymore. And so basically, all the issues 5 years later that they had with the original system were able to be fixed in that first update.
And that's a little bit of a misnomer because it's not like they were just like, we'll just deal with it for 5 years. They
Hmm.
were
Trying.
constantly maintaining and
Yeah.
updating it over those 5 years, like dealing with it. And then when they were like, okay, let's refurbish this, they said, okay, first things first, we're fixing the rail system
Hmm.
because it's a nightmare. So that was the first thing they did, and yeah, they completely solved pretty much all the problems they had to deal with. Originally, the ride was set next to a pirate ship themed restaurant, which was originally sponsored by Chicken of the Sea, who makes tuna fish. but
I
after
won't say it.
but after the brand
Jessica
decided
Simpson. Oh boy.
to drop their sponsorship, the restaurant was named Captain Hook's Galley because the restaurant was right next to the ride. So,
Stefan's favorite place at the Polynesian is Captain Cook's, the quick service place where you get the yummy. That's where you get the.
well, Captain Cook's. This was Captain Hook's.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm saying
Yes, that's my
similar.
favorite.
Yes, Captain Cook, Captain Hook.
My mom's maiden name is Cook, so there you go. But yeah, that is my favorite place to get fish tacos.
Hmm.
So originally it was the Chicken of the Sea boat restaurant or whatever pirate ship restaurant, but after they dropped their sponsorship, they named it Captain Hook's Galley in the lagoon next to it because it was like a boat, a pirate ship, and then there was like a little lake there. They turned that into the Skull Lake Lagoon. So they put the skull from the movie and everything in there, and they made this whole themed area.
Which that's one of my favorite parts of the movie, and that isn't. I mean, it's not on my list of like favorite movies, but and actually, Once Upon a Time kind of ruined it for me because I was like, ooh, Peter is kind of like that's like creepy and scary, and like you can't make people not grow up and that whole thing.
Oh yeah, they
Do
made
you
him
remember
a
that?
bad
Yeah, they made him a
guy.
bad guy, and that gave me like a sour taste about Peter Pan. But if we're talking the classic, we're talking the animated. movie that we all know. That one of my favorite parts is like the lagoon and like all that part and the Lost Boys. I love that. So
And Hook. Hook's really good.
and Shmi.
Yeah.
Shmi.
Bangarang and all that. So anyway, they turned the whole area into. So basically, that solidified that entire area as like the Peter Pan area. You had the ride, you had the restaurant, you had the lagoon.
Yeah.
Which was really, really cool, and it had that whole section of Fantasyland like on lock. The next change came in 1983, and these changes came in tandem with a complete overhaul of Fantasyland, which is when they went in and decided, like, okay, we're going to redo everything.
Yep.
First of all, Fantasyland was changed from like a medieval fantasy motif, like the buildings have this like medieval looking like iconology to them, yeah. But then they changed it to a Bavarian alpine village looking thing, which you see today. Which is funny because the town we live in has a county mandate that every building within the township has to have a Bavarian alpine look to it. So when we go to Fantasyland, it's as if we're walking in our own downtown because every building looks like that. Every building has that alpine theme with the peaked roofs and the little lattice things, and it all has that for some reason, even though we're in Michigan and not Sweden or Switzerland, but
Yeah.
still. Secondly, what came was the Dumbo ride was moved from its original location to where the Captain Hook's galley and Skull Grotto was located. So they moved
they
the
didn't
Dumbo
last long.
ride over to there.
Well, I mean, I guess they lasted, but yeah. So anyway, that eliminated those.
And this was all part of a like a whole, like, I guess you would call it like a people transit integration system where because they also moved the carousel, so King Arthur's carousel was moved down to create more space up by the castle so more people could move around. Dumbo's ride was moved.
Yeah, it was a total overhaul. I mean, they moved. I mean, moving these rides.
Yeah, and it wasn't just
change
like
the
random.
flow.
It was on purpose to make it so that people could move around easier. They could add to the volume of people that could move through the parks more easily. And they weren't going to get rid of the ship or anything. Like the whole plan was like, okay, we'll just move everything. But when they tried to move the ship originally, they tried, from what I read, they tried picking it all up in like one piece. And because the ship was built because it was built when the park was originally built, it was built very quickly and cheaply and as quickly as possible. When they tried to pick it all up, the entire thing fell to pieces.
Yeah, but they were able to salvage some of the stuff from that and use it on Peter Pan's
Yeah, the
flight.
stuff that was inside the ship, all the details and stuff, they did pull that out, and they were able to utilize that on the ride itself. But the ship itself, which they were just going to move, fell to pieces, and they were like, well, we can't afford to rebuild this entire place. We're just going to get rid of the grotto, get rid of the ship, erase the whole thing, and pretend it never existed. Which is of necessity. Like, I don't blame them for that. That it had to happen. But they were able to recycle all the parts, put them into the ride as they refurbished it. So a lot of like the pirate pieces and things that you see now are within
from
the ride
that
itself.
and it's cool too because they're from that original things that we're able to reuse, which we talk about a lot. Disney does a really good job doing that for things they reuse, recycle.
So as they were refurbishing the ride, one of the first things they added was Peter Pan himself, which is funny because it's Peter Pan's flight. But as we mentioned in the beginning, the main idea was that you were flying from Peter Pan's perspective.
Yeah.
Like viewing London, viewing Neverland. Like you were supposed to be him. A lot of people didn't get that. Why? Who knows? It seems like it's an easy thing to pick up on. That's what I thought when we rode the ride. And then after seeing Peter Pan, I was like,
so we're just with him. Like we're flying with Peter.
Yeah, like at that point I was like, oh, okay, so we're like
Wendy.
People sprinkled with like fairy dust and we're flying around.
Yeah.
But he's still doing his stuff. But I was under the impression that we were him. So I got it. I don't know why anyone else could. But
your brain works that
way. That's just me.
Yeah.
So they added Peter Pan into the ride. Where he's like there's scenes where he's in like is he in the bedroom? Did I write that down? I don't think he's in the bedroom. Maybe his shadow is.
I think I think it's the shadow that is, not Peter.
They did include like a pirate deck, like from the ship,
Mm-hmm.
where Peter and Hook are like fighting it out.
Yeah,
So
the
he
duel.
is, yeah, specifically on there. I do know that because I watched a video of that.
Yes, for all of these, it is really fun. If you haven't been on a ride or you want to know, watching the point of view things is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you'll know what we're talking about.
So that was the first major like refurb of the whole ride. The next one came in 2015, when Peter Pan's Flight got one of the most incredible queue updates of any Disney ride.
Yes.
So this must have happened right after we went there.
Yeah. Well,
because we didn't get this.
No, we would have been. Yeah, we would have. And this is why I think that maybe we fast passed. See, okay.
Oh, maybe we did.
Because we were there after that. Because Logan was almost one. Yeah, it was almost 2016. And I know that a lot of people, so I said get a fast pass for it because, it's a long wait. And this ride, even though it's a simple ride, has a very long wait. But some people will argue to not fast pass because of the updated queue. Like the new queue is very cool.
We must have, even though we didn't need to. But we must have had it.
I probably did. Well, I probably did. Because I probably read, I'm a planner. I probably read, fast pass or you'll wait crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I probably did.
Okay, so disappointment because here's what the new queue includes.
Yeah.
It's completely interactive. It features the kid's bedroom and an interactive shadow wall where your shadow can interact with butterflies and you can ring bells, or it'll dress you in character costumes. So basically, like you're walking up against a video wall and your shadow is on it, projected.
It's so fun.
And you can, if butterflies are flying by, you can reach your hand up and they'll land on your finger. Or their like bells will show up. You can ring the bells with your shadow, or it'll like dress you up like Hook or Peter or any of like other characters. Really, really cool. At one point, there's a shadow lantern that shows up, and when you tap it, like if you hit it, Tinkerbell escapes from it, like the lantern that she's stuck in. She like flies out of it, and then she flies into the room, and using like the projection mapping technology, you can see like her like fairy trail like flying around the room, and things throughout the room like shake and move and like wobble around.
Yeah, that's so
So
cool.
it's really, really cool.
I love Tink. I'm a Tink.
And if you watch the video, it looks super real. It's awesome. Like the way they pull it off is really, really cool.
Yeah. I'm hopping over. I'm gonna hop over to the live chat and Gigi said that one of her favorite seasons of Once Upon a Time was the one that we were talking about with Peter. And Griswold Family Bake. What's up, everybody? What's up? Thank you for being here. We are talking all about Peter Pan's Flight.
Once Upon a Time is a show we did not finish.
No.
We watched until right before the season that had Aladdin.
Mm-hmm. We would go for shows like we watched One Tree Hill. I always tell people the first like 3 seasons of that were good, and then it's just nosedives. But we used to be committed to shows. Now there's been a few shows we've kind of abandoned.
Yeah, if they get bad, we're just like, whatever, it's not good anymore. Turn it off. I don't care. I don't care what happens to these people. So some of the other updates we got in 2015 were new animatronics in the bedroom scene of the ride, which were all the kids used to be on the bed. I don't remember their names. They used to be sitting on the bed, and
Wendy.
Yeah,
Michael?
Wendy. Okay, so they're sitting on the bed, and Wendy's reading to them. Now they're all like flying, like floating, like because they have the pixie dust.
And John, the other one is John.
Yes. And there are new special effects in the London and Neverland scenes at the ride. I don't remember what those are, but they're new effects.
Yes, so and you can ride Peter Pan's Flight at Disneyland, Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Shanghai Disneyland.
And if you can, check out the POV like ride through of the Shanghai Disney one, because there's a lot of complaints on a lot of the original rides, like Pirates of the Caribbean, especially on Shanghai Disney, because the Shanghai Disney version of Pirates of the Caribbean is just it's a spectacle. It's something where you're like, oh yeah, look at that, and it's supposed to be really grand and amazing, but it kind of falls short. Where you're just like, okay, yeah, sure, video screens, big things moving around, I get it. it loses a lot of like the majesty that the original ride has. With Peter Pan's Flight, they keep it within the realm of the original idea, where everything is dark and the stuff is lit up. But it is more grand in the sense that they have like the video walls and you see the kids flying by, and it is really cool to watch. They do a good job with it.
Yeah.
It's something I think they pulled off really well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing where if you're in Shanghai,
yeah, if you get to go to Shanghai,
check
if you're watching this replay or live and you've been to Shanghai Disneyland, let us know and tell us if you rode this ride.
We have not.
No, definitely. We've not been to anywhere except for Disney World. We talk about this every episode. Everything that is personal experience is just Disney World. We have been to no other Disney parks yet.
Mm-hmm. So now we are entering the fun facts lightning round.
I had it ready this time.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
So at Disney World, you can see Ariel hanging out with the mermaids in the mermaid pool portion of the ride.
Also, that is one of my favorite lines from the movie. My favorite part is, I was only trying to drown her. So hilarious.
So messed up. But the funny thing with that portion of the ride is that it didn't start out that way. Like when they built the ride at Disney World, they had the mermaid, I don't know if it's the grotto or whatever, they had the mermaid area, and one of the mermaids did look sort of like Ariel. And it got to the point where guests were asking cast members, like, is that Ariel? Is that supposed to be Ariel? Like, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, no, I'm not sure. But because the ride was built before Little Mermaid was even a thing. So when the movie came out and it got even more popular, and then they did that refurb in '83, they were like, okay, well, let's change this and make it actually Ariel. So all they did was paint the hair bright red, and they added like the clam shells, and that was it. And then it was Ariel all of a sudden. So it's interesting how like easy it was to make this pre-existing character into this new one. But yeah, it looks just like her.
Yeah, and it's a really fun detail, and I know like there's so many people who are so into that, but the connecting of the different stories, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy into it too much or go too crazy with it, but I do enjoy it as a big Disney fan. It's fun. It's good stuff. Another thing is that you're only 17 feet off the ground when you are riding on Peter Pan's Flight. So they have tiny sized models below that give you that effect, and they're using force perspective, and that's in all the parks.
Yeah, they use force perspective everywhere, in Matterhorn, in Beast Castle, everywhere they use it. So it's a well used effect, and they use it very well here actually, because you do feel like you're much higher than that when you're in the ride. Like you don't feel like you're crazy high up, but you do feel like you're higher than 17 feet for sure.
Yeah, Gigi said, wait, they made it Ariel in 83. Well, that movie came out in 89, so it couldn't have been in 83. It would have been sometime after that.
Oh,
you say
okay.
83.
I must have said 83.
Okay. Yeah, Gigi, I'm not sure what year then. That's interesting, but no.
Yeah, during one of the refurbs they did it. After the movie came out, that's when they did it. So, yeah. Let's see here. There's a hidden Mickey in Big Ben. So as you're going by Big Ben, as you pass by it, when you go like behind it, if you look back, in one of the windows, like the lit up windows, you can see a Mickey silhouette in there.
Yeah, we have a really cool hidden Mickey book too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it tells you all the hidden Mickeys.
Yeah, I want to spend a day at Disney. I mean, it would be kind of boring to do it like all day, but like I want to find a few of them. I think it'd be cool to do and like take with the kids. They love scavenger hunt style kind of stuff. So. Yeah. Oh, and then there's a hidden word in the nursery scene blocks. So you can see Disney spelled out and also Peter Pan in the alphabet blocks.
Yeah, so when you're going through the kids' room, there's like blocks stacked up. And if you look at them at the right angle, it'll say Disney and Peter Pan, which is pretty neat. Of course, they would do that with that.
Classic. I'm looking over on a wall that's behind us. There is, we have a bunch of our, we only have 3 kids, but we have our kids' newborn photos, and we have blocks that say Logan on Logan's newborn photos. So, yeah, very original.
So while Disneyland's pirate ships, the ships that we ride in, stop at the platform to load, Magic Kingdom's ships are on an Omnimover system, like Haunted Mansion. So it's on the big, like, moving track.
Watch that episode.
So they continuously move. I didn't check to see how many ships were in the Magic Kingdoms ride. I saw originally in Disneyland's there were like 10.
Yes.
There
Well,
weren't that many. It is a very low capacity ride.
I was gonna say,
which
this is-
adds to
the wait time.
Yeah, the high capacity wait time.
And it's popular. It's like, a classic. People just, they have to ride it.
Mhm.
And what we always are talking about on here is one of the biggest things they're trying to do is, I mean, I guess we did a little bit with how they rerouted everything at Disneyland, but they're trying to get as many people through as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you can do with this ride.
With a low capacity ride.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that adds to it, and it probably adds to like the mystique of it too, because it's so busy. But it's because they just can't handle that many people.
Yeah. Ooh, our ring light is really. You want to glare? Okay. Maybe I should.
Yeah, it's been on glasses the entire time.
Oh.
Wah, 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 wah.
Aren't Stefan's glasses nice though?
Wah, 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 wah.
Are you guys going to see Onward tomorrow? I think we were
We
going
tried to see it today, but we can't because our theater's not playing it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
We're going to go tomorrow night, but we've actually been doing this like date night in kind of thing on Fridays. So I think we might take the kids Saturday, maybe.
Yeah.
So expensive though for all 5 of us to go. I'm like, all right, we're going, but no snacks, kids, because that doubles
like
the price.
$100 to take all of us.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So just you could eat at home for free.
You can bootleg it for free.
Oh my gosh, no! I meant the food.
I don't condone that.
Okay.
Anywho.
All right. I lost my spot. Oh.
How do they make the volcano
Mm-hmm.
in Neverland seem like it's bubbling? So there's that volcano in Neverland, and it looks like it's all bubbling. It's actually just a bunch of styrofoam, and there's like air blowing underneath it, so it like blows it up a little bit. So it's like puffs of air, which is one of those cool, fun little innovative things that they did, and they still do now because if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Disneyland's version also went through refurb in 2015, and one of the biggest things is the darling children. So that is John, Michael, and Wendy are flying in the nursery along with you, which is really cool.
Which we did mention that before, but yeah, it's still that was one of the big
Special
changes.
effect,
Yeah, that they have the new animatronics up in the air and stuff, and there's a bunch of the projection mapping on it to make it look like there's like glitter and stuff falling off them.
Super cool. You mean pixie dust?
Yes. And up until 2015, the clouds floating over London were actually just plastic bags, which reminds me of the Matterhorn, of how when you went through the tunnel, the inside that was all covered up was just sheets painted gray. For so many years, it was just sheets painted gray. So up until 2015, they were just plastic bags.
That's so crazy.
And those were the clouds, which it's like, man, you made gajillions of dollars with plastic bags as clouds. It's just one of those funny things where, like, you don't expect it. Like, it's like, and it's not that they're cutting corners. They just, that was the
technology and how they pulled it off.
Yeah, that's the effect they created, and they were like, it still works.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. And that's Peter Pan's Flight.
That is Peter Pan's Flight. So if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share it out. Leave us a comment whether you're watching live or in the replay. We did have more people hopping in and saying hello tonight, so I really appreciate you guys saying hi if you're here. No pressure. We don't bite. We're live. You're not live. You're just chatting along live with us. We do want to thank Dean at theliveplace.com. Dean streams a bunch of amazing people, including some of the people who commented tonight. So we really appreciate that. All family friendly, a lot of great Disney content, and he's awesome. So check out theliveplace.com. I have that linked in the bio. Also, be sure to go to the bio if you would like to see any of these episodes. You can watch the whole playlist. You can pick and choose rides or attractions you're interested in. And let us know either in a comment, or you can find me at LeahTackles on Instagram. And you can find Stefan at the Mitten Print Shop.
Yep. Nope. I'm wearing a shirt.
The Mitten Print Shop, yes.
There you go.
That's
Check
his
swag.
wholesale screen
It's
printing.
not for sale, only for me.
Yes. And yeah, so if you guys liked it, thanks so much for watching. We hope you liked it. It was a fun one. So I was surprised how much I thought this one was really interesting.
Yeah, it was difficult to piece together because there's not a lot of info out there, but there are little bits and pieces if you look. So there's lots of good interviews and things that you can pull from.
And we have had a couple of questions about how we do these episodes. Pretty much I watch a few videos and then Stefan goes through and weeds through the internet, like the whole internet, y'all, to try to find this
I
stuff.
start at Wikipedia. I
It's-
start at Wikipedia to get like the main idea, and then
Yeah.
I go from there. It doesn't always work because sometimes Wikipedia is useless.
Yes, and we didn't this time, but a lot of times we'll reference videos that he's watched or websites, and I always try. I don't always do it. We mention them, but I always try to link them as well. So if you want to go for your own deep dive, you can do that as well.
There were a few really good articles from back in the day that had been written on this ride, and I found like, what do you call that? Like microfiche. Like when you used to go to the library and look at microfiche, I found like a PDFs that
Anybody
looked like that.
younger than us is gonna be like.
So I was like reading through those, and there was some really good info on a lot of those, which I was thankful for. Who I should have looked at who wrote those articles, but they might be dead. Who knows? It was a long time ago. It was in the 90s that they wrote them, so
Might be dead.
I don't
Good
know.
grief.
People
Okay.
die.
Yeah, Mike says, great show. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate you hopping in and watching. And thank you very much.
Definitely.
Share with your friends if you have any Disney friends. But that's it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. And we hope that you have a magical day.
And we'll see you real soon, like next week even.
Like next week at 8 Eastern Time.